Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Come Back to Love. We are on Dream Vision's 7 Radio Network. I'm your host, Robyn Vogel. I'm a love and intimacy coach, an IFS therapist, and the creator of Ready for Love in 90 Days. This is a sacred space where we explore the real, raw, and beautiful journey of coming home to love, starting with ourselves and extending to the relationships we long to heal, deepen, or ignite. Each week, I'll share powerful tools, heart-opening stories, and transformational insights to help you release the old patterns that keep love just out of reach. Whether you're healing from heartbreak, feeling stuck in familiar dynamics, or simply craving deeper connection, you're in the right place. Today, I have a special guest. Every week I have special guests because everybody who joins me is so special. It's really true. We have Nick Meima. Meima, am I saying that right now? I just asked you. Yes, today. And Nick and I met about a month ago. We had a one-to-one, I would call like a colleague collaboration call with each other to get to know each other's work. And Nick is doing what feels to me like really steady, grounded work, supporting people in recovering from their divorce and moving on in a more resilient, strong way. I'm using my own words, and I look forward to you using yours. So, welcome everybody to Come Back to Love radio show. I'm excited to have you here. Of course, we are every week, Thursdays at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can listen anywhere you are. You can download the app and listen on your phone while you're going for a walk. If you're in the car, you can press iHeartRadio or Pandora. You can ask Alexa. So many ways to listen to this radio show. Feel free to download, subscribe, like, all the good stuff. And here we go with another wonderful episode. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do you want to reintroduce yourself in the way that you might, and you do, describe yourself and your work? I know you've been doing this for a long time.
Sure. So I've been really focusing on divorce recovery work for about 15 years now, and I am living in Boulder, Colorado. The only reason I'm mentioning that specifically is that Bruce Fisher, who is the author of the book Rebuilding When Your Relationship Ends,
Mm.
he was a pioneer about 45 years ago in creating a 10-week program. And so he lived in Boulder as well. So it was just coincidental when I got to Boulder that I met people that he had trained who had also been then teaching and facilitating the 10-week program. And they were retiring, and I just stepped in and then took that over, which we'll get into more details in a minute. But his widow and I met before she moved to Maui to say I volunteered to pioneer teaching the program online for the first time. That was nobody had done that before.
Hmm.
So since then, I've had the opportunity to work with people all over the world and met recently with some people I had trained in China, where now there's in Beijing there was like 20 or 30 classes last year for and they were specifically focused on women.
Wow.
um, um, but generally in the United States and other parts of the world where we've trained other people, men and women both are participating in the 10-week program. So for me, it's just such a powerful thing, having gone through my own divorce, knowing how devastating it was. I describe it as crawling on the floor emotionally. It's how it hit me. I was 40 years old at the time, and spent a couple of years really looking at how it is that I could grow, learn, transform myself so that I didn't have to go through that experience again because it was so painful. And then I took a couple of years doing what I call prospecting, which is not dating, but we can get into more details about prospecting is. But I was looking for gold, um,
Hmm.
and so took a couple of years doing that, and then met my wife Tara, and then became a stepfather. I had two daughters from my first marriage, and so we went through a blending of our two families successfully. So, And so have a lot of life experience plus academic training in marriage, family, child counseling, bachelor's in psychology, and lots of other training in spiritual psychological counseling, and all of that to step in. And so for me, not only is it working with that individual going through the divorce process, but my vision is if I can support them in growing and transforming as a result of the divorce, then they can be somebody that their children can attach to emotionally. And what I find is that so many people go through divorce, they don't get the support that they really need. And my belief is we all need more support, not less, going through divorce. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
And so, and that's been one of the things that I found to be true with the hundreds of actually thousands of people that we've gone through our program, is that the people that we work with do get to the place where divorce could be the doorway to a wonderful future where they could stand on their own 2 feet and not only survive, but really getting more perspective and tools to start thriving.
Mm.
That's a quick introduction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and no need to be quick, but I know, right, you can write a book about this, or you already have.
Right.
Um, uh, so I love, and of course I hold the same frame, that divorce is a doorway. And for me, I always say it's the best and worst thing I've ever done for myself. And
You said it's the best and worst. Is that what you said?
yeah,
Okay.
it's
Um,
interesting the way that I'm holding it. I mean, of course, it's a very positive thing that I did for myself, because I needed to grow in ways that I wasn't growing, and I needed to branch out, and I needed to be more myself. And here I am,
mhm,
and I wouldn't be who I am right now probably if I had, made a different choice. The
mhm,
worst choice because the children and just the challenge around that, back and forth dynamic and all of that. And I had an amicable divorce.
mhm,
Um, thank God. I have a very great ex-husband,
mhm.
um, who I really appreciate very much. So but it's a really big thing to present. I think the way that you present it for people that are sort of in the throes of it, like this is a doorway that opens up possibly some, and hopefully positive steps.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's so difficult because some when the stress scale, one of the stress scales has divorce being the top most stressful. Others, of course, death of a spouse or death of a child, which of course are devastating in their own way. But I think because divorce is much more of a solitary experience, meaning that when a spouse dies, the whole community gathers around to support. But when you go through a divorce, you relatively do that relatively alone and then lose a lot of your social support system because they choose sides, or I call it divorce leprosy, where people don't want to invite you to dinner anymore because you might, if you're a woman, you might steal their husband or invite, all these different things. And also people don't know exactly how to relate to it, what to say.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're talking about that part. Nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
And
So,
it
so
was,
for me, that's a fundamental reason. And so we'll come back in just a second. And so in the class format that we have over and over, people will say, I hear here, I don't feel like I'm alone. People understand, and we always have our students, call each other. We create a buddy system, so it's
mm,
beyond just the class and my support and the other facilitators that we've trained. So yeah, it's such a, and then the burden that you were describing of the children. And how do you carry that if nobody else is supporting you? And the reality is half of first marriages end in divorce, and arguably 25% of the other half, or half of the other half, ought to be getting divorced.
mm,
My bias. Um,
I get it.
so so divorce can be the doorway, but it does have such a challenging um, process to go through. And, not only grief, which we as a culture don't support, and the anger and the confusion and the sense of, if there was a, a fair amount of self-esteem to start with, almost everybody going through divorce experiences a significant dip in the self-esteem because it is so challenging. And people over and over say, I feel like a failure. And I say, well, actually, together, you and he or you and she could not create a constructively sustainable relationship. It wasn't a failure, it just that's where you ended up. And
Hmm.
arguably, some people never should have been married in the first place. And so that where people paint the red flags green. So they just, oh yeah. Or they adopt the usual thing of, well, he can change.
Yeah.
And you know all these things. So
Yeah, well, no, but I think it's really good to say that. I know it, but the thousands of people listening, um, that's a really big piece. I mean, because I think that's a part of the sort of magical thinking that we do,
right.
protect ourselves, and we say like, well, he'll change. And of course, the worst thing we can do in a relationship is bank on our partner changing or spend energy and money and time wishing and hoping that that'll happen.
Right, right. And it all started, I hope it's okay to say this. We human beings, of all the beings on the planet, have the unique capacity to make shit up and make that shit mean something.
Yes.
And so we meet this guy or this woman and we make up who they are.
Yeah.
The illusion, the fantasy of, and not only do we do that, we also unconsciously hand our little boy or little girl off to them and say, you take care of him. This is unconscious.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's what we do. And then the illusion or the fantasy of who he or she really is gradually over a year or two begins to, and then we want to do everything we can to get that person back, but they don't. And then we get more and more resentful and blaming and judgmental. And then we're off
Mhm.
to a very negative creation, which typically gets more and more negative as time goes on. Fortunately, some people get, oh, we got to get help, and they do, but not the majority. So
Mhm.
it's such a so part of the goal in the 10-week program and the work that I do is to help people understand how they got in the situation in the first place. And then the first 5 weeks of the class is going through the grief, the anger, looking back at how it is I got here, the behaviors that in childhood that I developed, what we call adaptive in childhood, and then I use those same behaviors in my marriage and they become maladaptive. Maladaptive meaning that they don't allow us to get our adult needs met. And of course, the adult needs are very different than childhood needs. So it's such a negative paradigm. And then we also have a lot of masks that we wear.
Mhm.
And so we talk about that in class because how can you possibly build self-esteem when you're pretending to be somebody else? And so we got to deal with that. And then in the second half, we talk about self-esteem and how to learn to love yourself and how to communicate more effectively, how to deal with forgiveness, and then how to deal with real true intimacy. And
Yeah.
finally, authenticity. Be your real self, your authentic self.
Mhm.
That's
Wow.
what we're
That's
all about.
a life journey in 10 weeks.
In 10 weeks, yeah, it's obvious we can't solve all of it, but we can at
Sure.
least give a roadmap and give a
Yeah.
solid experience to,
Yes.
okay, now I have a sense of where I'm going and I have some strength and tools to get there.
Yeah, you really, yeah, I like how you're touching on that whole arc, you know, of what's needed. Let's go back. So many things were pinging along the way. Of course, we could go into any one of those, but
Sure.
somehow what's standing out in this very moment is the piece around masks.
Hmm.
I think it would be, first of all, helpful to share a little bit more about what you mean. So let's start there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So mask is what Carl Jung called personas, which is to say a false personality or so when back in childhood, when mom and dad couldn't meet all of our needs, if that's who the caretakers were, we gradually adapted this attitude that, well, they're not meeting my needs because there's something wrong with me.
Mm,
And that's where the first persona gets created. Who do I need to act like in order to get their approval, acceptance, love, or at least avoid disapproval? And
hmm.
so this is typically in the first 3 to 5 years. And then over time, we go to school. Maybe there's this teacher we really wanted her or him to really like us, but more
Mm,
dramatically when we went into junior high, when our bodies were changing, and a lot of times people, two or three elementary schools merge. Now all we're doing is trying to figure out what is going on with my body, about hormones and all kinds of things. Now there's girls and there's boys, and I never looked at them in the same way before. And where do I fit in?
yeah.
How do I fit in? Now a whole lot more masks get developed, and that continues on into high school. And then if we went to college or wherever, they continue to develop. And so, for example, the oldest, oftentimes, not always, but the oldest develops the persona of the over responsible, the very responsible girl or boy. They do.
Raising my hand for those that are listening. You too.
So we're good, we're dutiful, we get good grades, we're responsible, we don't cause trouble, at least not until the teenage years, maybe. But where some of that starts out. But then we take that on into adulthood. And so one of there's a lot of different dynamics, but one of them is that you, as the responsible one, are then, when you're looking for a partner, unconsciously looking for an under-responsible one, because otherwise, how are you going to be responsible, right? And so, but
Yep.
the person who's under-responsible, that's how he or she got attention in the family. Oh, I can't do that. I need support. I need help. And so people would just take care of him or her. And they took that's a persona. And then we took that into adulthood. And then there's the persona of the rebel, or the persona of
Mm,
the really good one. I don't mean responsible, I mean good.
yeah.
And there's all kinds of them, and the masks of, I have a fair number of really religious people, and when they go to church, there's a certain mask in church. But then
Mm.
they go into the social hall, and there's a different, you know,
Oh, wow.
and
Just
here's the Mr. Pious, and then over here is Mr. or Mrs. Gossipy,
right.
and I say this from years of experience myself, having been in that environment, but even at work, there's a certain persona that people have at work, and they step out on their breaks or on the weekends. It's very different.
Hmm.
So but all of that is a defense against the belief that I'm not enough, that I'm inadequate, that I'm not lovable. That got created when we were very, very young for the most of us.
Yeah. Right.
There's some recent work that I ran into, is when a baby is looking up at mom and she averts her eyes, it causes panic in the baby. If
Mm,
that happens often enough, some shame already can be introduced. This is new to me. I didn't realize it was so young. So in the first 12 months. And so it's such a profound thing to recognize that I'm creating a whole defense structure around a false belief that
yes.
I don't belong, that I'm not worthy. There's something wrong with
Right.
me. I'm putting my hands in my heart as I say that, because it's so painful that I went through that, but it's also empathetically so painful that anybody would go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So painful. Yeah. I love how you describe that, and so accessible to the people listening, and how painful it is and we all do it initially, create
Mhm.
a whole life around that, those
Mhm.
veils, the pretend places that
Yeah.
we create in order to feel a sense of belonging. And then it's so painful when we get to that place of realizing, like, oh my gosh, I am not myself. I don't know who this version of myself is. And
Right.
It creates so much angst. So it's so good to name it because it gives people the opportunity to take a breath. And I'm inviting our listeners to take a breath and just kind of
Mhm.
reflect on what came up for you as you heard Nick share, that description. I think it's really helpful I'm a big fan of self-inquiry. I know you are too.
Mhm.
But take a moment and just ask, are there places in my life where I'm not being authentic? I'm sure the answer is yes, because it's yes for all of us. And but to what degree?
Mhm.
To what degree? Because yeah. We're going to take a commercial break in a moment, but it was really interesting what you said about the church. I don't go to church, but I can understand like there's a way of being, and then all you have to do is like walk through the door, and there's another way of being, and
Mhm.
it's right there. And it's like, it's so interesting that we have to put certain personas on to be here, and then three steps away, you can take some off, maybe put some others on.
Mhm.
But wow.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
what would it be like if we didn't need to do that at all?
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you need to take a break
Yeah,
now?
let's take a commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Come Back to Love Radio, and we're here with Nick Meima, and we're talking about some really deep, important stuff about actually being human and the ways that we navigate being authentic. And during the break, we had a little mini conversation about um, defensiveness and the way we defend ourselves, and it fits right in, of course, with the reason we put the veils on and, act in certain ways that aren't our true authentic selves. So we'll
Mhm.
bring this around to like how that plays out with the divorce situation, which is it really does. So, but let's go to what you were telling me during the break about defense and
Sure.
defensiveness. Yeah.
So, the fundamental question is, what is it that we're defending? What is it we're defending against? And, for example, somebody calls you a name or somebody's very critical or judgmental. You suck at this. You're never on time. You just don't do things well. There's something wrong with you. Judgment, criticism, shaming, blaming, name calling. Um, so somebody calls you a name and you immediately want to react and call them another name or, be very angry at them, whatever. Well, how come? So we believe if we believe we're inadequate, defective, not lovable, and don't have value, then a name or these criticisms, they just land inside of us as true because that's what we've identified ourselves as not enough and adequate. And everything you just said to me is out picturing of that. And so that's painful, and I want to stop that, and then I want to blame you for hurting
Mhm.
me. And we're if you can get that that's an inaccurate creation that we all almost 97% as far as I know have gone through this kind of, and most people stay there their entire lives. I call it the prison cell of not enoughness that we've created with all these self-limiting beliefs. I'm not enough, I'm inadequate, defective,
Mm.
I can't do this, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not resourceful enough, I'm not successful, and all these things that we do or can't never be able to, and we're alone in there.
Mm.
And with that core belief of not enoughness, and so then everything that's coming at us validates that in our distorted construct. So where we go is to say, no, 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 that's not true. We created it when we were little, young, and we've been perpetuating a defense system that keeps us stuck in there. And who we are is, enough. Who we are is a beautiful person. Who
Mm.
we are is, I say, a gem because we're multifaceted. And when we're in that prison cell, only a few facets are evident to the world. But what wants to happen is all of the facets of our unique gemness want to be reflected into the world because that the world wants that, needs that, and also we feel so much better when we're realizing our full potential. And for those people who believe in the divine source, energy, creator, universe, then you're the son or daughter of, let's in simple terms, of source, and that's who you really are, it's true identity.
Mm,
So what I have people imagine that they could put on what I call the Kevlar vest. Kevlar
mm,
vest of their true identity. I'm enough. I'm a gem. I'm a beautiful person, son or daughter of God, if they believe that. And now when somebody says, I'll be crude, you're such an asshole, the person wearing the vest says, huh, that was a little bit hurtful. What's going on with you that you would call me that? So I
mm,
can respond, which is what we all really, really want to be able to do, because now I'm not identified with my old belief system. Now I'm in reality about who I really am, and I don't react. Because
mm,
reaction is from the programmed unconscious of not enoughness, all a part of our defense system. And it's tragic and such a powerful thing to say, wow, what's going on with you that you would say that to me?
mm. Right. Yeah. Such deep work, and it takes awareness and
Right,
pause. As you're
right.
talking, I'm just thinking about like, I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, it's all the work that I do as well. It's so important to go in and go look at the shadows and do the healing work and grow from the all of our experiences. But not everybody chooses that, and not everybody chooses that.
Mhm,
And I think you have a very, as far as I could tell, a very successful program that's 10
mhm,
weeks. You have many people leading it. It's not just you. Like you said, you've been doing this for 15 years. You're impacting a lot of people.
mhm.
And so many people, and maybe you know the percentage, just like get divorced and then start dating again, try to find their next partner, get married, continue on. Okay, sometimes that's fine. Worked out really well for my ex-husband actually, because he met his like true partner for
Mhm,
that part of his life before I was his true partner for that earlier section of our lives.
mhm.
Um, but to have like imagine that everybody who, and I'm sure you imagine this quite often, everybody who got divorced spent at least 10 weeks, let's just say 10 weeks for the sake
Right.
of argument, in a program, in your program or a program like yours. Like what, I guess that's just something I'm imagining. And what's on the other side? Like, what does it look like for the people who spent the time in the 10 weeks and really took time with themselves versus the people that choose not to? Now, of course, I just told you my ex-husband like
Mhm,
met his life partner very quickly and they've
mhm.
been so happy for many, many years. So, of course, there's that. But
Right,
that's not everybody. And yeah,
right.
he was blessed.
So 25% of people who get divorced do not get into another relationship.
25%.
Yeah.
Hmm. At
But
all.
at all.
Like ever.
Never.
Oh,
Um,
that's sad.
so um, of the people that do, a lot of them do the rinse and re what I call the rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
No pausing. Some people do that before they even leave the marriage. They have the next partner before they even leave the
Yeah.
marriage.
Yes.
Others, almost instantly jumping into the next thing. And so how I describe it is this. When I'm in that prison cell that I mentioned before,
Mm.
I feel anxious. I feel fearful because I'm so dependent on the outer for approval, for acceptance.
Mm.
I also feel shame, as I mentioned before, and then I also feel resentment when people don't accept me. I want to blame them for my pain, and I put all those feelings, plenty more, in a blender, and I come out with one feeling, and that's desperation.
Mm.
Thoreau said most people live lives of quiet desperation.
Mm.
And so desperate people do desperate things. And so what do? They immediately want to go out because who would want to be alone when I'm feeling so desperate? I don't want to be alone. I have to be with somebody. Well,
Mhm.
so I meet Sally or Bob, and they like me. Well, the reality is they like the mask that I presented to them.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is they were doing the same thing for me, and I'm about to go into rinse and repeat. And so desperate people do desperate thing and they grab on to the first thing that's going by a lot of times. And so
Mm.
many, many times, unlike what happened with your ex-husband, people end up in a worse situation than they were in the first place. And then, in my experience, that the second breakup is sometimes more painful than the first because it compounds a lot of the stuff that was there in the first place, and that many people avoid, and they just go running to the next person, and they
Right.
don't really process the divorce. And so they take all that stuff, the pain, the confusion, the maladaptive behaviors, the masking, all of that into the second relationship. And
Mhm.
mostly that doesn't go well, of course not. And then it's his fault after all.
Right. Right. Of course.
So
Unless it's her fault.
you're right. Um, so so that's, I think I answered your question, at least responded to, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna follow up.
Right. I mean, that's great. It's such really good data, first of all, and um, certainly an invitation to do the work
Mhm.
and um, and heal so that you don't do the rinse and repeat.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And again, thinking of the children, right?
Yes.
If we can help an individual that's going through divorce get ready to stand, be able to stand on their own emotional feet, and hopefully on the foundation of enoughness,
Yes.
then the children can attach to them. But when a parent goes through another upheaval, like it's no small thing for a parent to introduce to a new partner, and the children weren't sitting there saying, "Oh, I really, 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 really want you to have a new partner." That's
Right.
typically not what they say.
No.
And so there's some resistance to accepting, and that's why, when people do get married and they have stepchildren, it takes they say it takes 7 years to normalize that.
Yes.
So if you introduce, and now and then you, a year and a half, 2 years later, go through another breakup,
Mm.
it really compounds the confusion and upsetness in the children. And so to me, there's a parental responsibility,
Yes.
because in my mind, when people talk about purpose in their lives, and I want to say something more about that in a second,
Good.
I believe that the primary purpose people have if they're parents is to be the best possible parent they can be, and get the child to 18 at least, and fulfill that purpose. And
Yes.
many people, because of their emotional upheaval, they really do not fulfill that purpose while they're going through a divorce. And back up, when when two partners, whatever the sexual identification is, are in a negative relationship with each other, arguing and a lot of negativity, that affects the kids, of course, profoundly.
Right.
So, so to me, there's just a responsibility to be the best parent and be the most loving to myself and to the other child I can possibly be. And so it's a profound thing for me to say, wait a minute. So purpose, back to purpose for a second.
Yeah.
My firm belief is that divorce can be the doorway to a wonderful future. And one of the ways it can is that, okay, I no longer have to get his or her approval, acceptance, money, or or time
Hmm.
to go do. So for a lot of people, it's the opportunity to do something with their life that they never could do when they were in the relationship. That was
Hmm.
certainly true for me. There were a couple of things that I did with that were life changing. I wouldn't be talking to you today if I hadn't done them.
Right.
And so, for many people who don't go through this work, they continue to live in that prison cell,
Yeah.
desperate and purposeless. And
Yeah.
it's tragic. Tragic. Related to parenting, Carl Jung, whose work I really love, had this quote. Well,
Mm.
I'm quoting him.
Yes.
The mo-
He didn't quote you.
no. The most negative legacy a parent can leave a child
Mm.
is their unlived life.
Oh, who I have the chills. Wow.
So that for me is so compelling. And so I'm now adding in a little bit here that most of us in some way were burdened and have been and still are sometimes burdened by our parents' unlived life. And we talk about the legacy of our ancestors and how we are carrying that on. And so this is where consciousness comes in again, and where I can unburden that backpack that was imposed on me unconscious, that I took on unconsciously. And sometimes parents consciously and deliberately impose something on the kids, but a lot of times it's unconscious,
Yeah.
but nonetheless real. And that in and of itself is sometimes not uncommonly what adds to the marriage not working, because I'm carrying stuff from my past that simply doesn't fit into this relationship.
Hmm.
So that's so it's a compounding of the whole purpose thing. But it's such a, if we don't have a sense of purpose, the without a vision, I forget who said that, without a vision the people perish. And so
Right.
that's a, I'm
Yeah.
laughing. It's a lot that I just dropped in there in a succinct way. I hope not too succinct.
No, no. I think you dropped it in a perfect way. And so many, oh my gosh, so many golden nuggets in this conversation. The piece that you quoted, I mean, the quote from Carl Jung, resonated so much with me. And I suppose as much work as I've done, and gosh, it's been a lot in my almost 60 years on the planet. Um, my mother lived a very short life. She lived till she was 37.
Mhm.
Well, she had just turned 38, like 2 days before she died. Um, and it's of all the grief work that I've done and the healing, I don't know that I've really given that piece some thought. Like, what am I carrying from her unlived life with me still?
Mhm.
And whew, it gives me a little bit of a headache. So I know there's something there to explore. So
Mm.
thank you for that invitation or doing a
Mm.
little a little
Mhm.
radio show therapy.
It's
I don't hold
it,
anything back on the radio show.
yeah. Well, good for you to to be vulnerable, authentic in that way, because to my knowing, very few people don't have this.
Hmm.
That is to say,
Yeah,
the burden that they're carrying from their parents unlived. And so if I'm living in this prison cell of not enoughness, my parents were my grandparents, my great
sure.
grandparents, so they couldn't teach me what they didn't know, and they burdened me with their um the weight of the belief that they could not and were not worthy of
Hmm.
giving something to life. And so they're
Hmm.
always looking for something outside of, and this is where the constant need for approval, acceptance, and giving our power away.
Hmm.
And and so codependency is something that people regularly talk about. I and there's even codependence anonymous, like it's an addiction, which
Yes.
in my mind it is not. It's a behavior all based on my not enoughness. And
Yes.
so, in simple terms, how I've come to term it, codependency is I'll be okay if you're okay. And if you're not okay, I'm not okay. And
Right.
most of us know that in the dynamics of relationship, and
Sure.
how we're constantly in this interplay with our partners, and leading to futility, and then getting into this dance, what we in family therapy call the dance, where she would be this way, and then he would react that way, and then he would
Mm.
react that way, and then she would do more of that, and the back and forth.
Yeah.
It's all based on that desperation and trying to find something. If I could just get you to be okay, then
Hmm.
I could feel okay.
Sure. We're
How,
going to take a commercial break in a moment, but it's very common for parents, especially mothers probably, to say, and you've probably heard this expression, I'm only as happy as my, you know, most unhappy child. It's, oh my gosh, what a
yeah,
burden that is.
yeah,
Phew.
yeah. That's
Take a,
that's that's a good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll take a breath into that and take a commercial break. We'll be right back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. We're just continuing this amazing show with Nick Meima. This has been amazing. I love my radio show because I love my guests. Honestly, like I'm it's just so rich and inspiring and such a gift for people to hear this information, understand something more deeply about themselves that, propels them forward in their personal growth, and also knowing about these opportunities to do the healing work and participate, in this case, in what you're offering. So we've got a couple more minutes. Let's hear how people can find you and what you're getting ready to share with the world.
Sure. So the website that we have is simple. It's rebuilders, plural, rebuilders.net. And there's just a wealth of information on the website. And we offer a 10-week program that I've mentioned that's online, and we typically are starting one of those every 3 or 4 weeks.
Mm,
And then we also have a recorded version of that where people can do a self-guided, if they're in a different time zone and so forth. But the classes are 2 hours and 10 consecutive weeks, and there's homework and there's a textbook, the Rebuilding When Your Relationship End book, and as well as a workbook, the buddy system. And we also offer in our website a free self-test, and that test gives each person who takes it a glimpse of where they are in the process of transformation or healing or growing. For example, it looks at self-esteem, it looks at where are you with your anger, it looks at where you are with your grief, it looks at where you are in disentangling from your ex, and how trust there's trust, social, we call it social trust. How do I feel about being out in public? And so the goal is ultimately to improve. And so that we have people take the test right away, and it's for free. And then if they take the 10-week program, they can take it again and see the vast improvement that typically happens. And then we also have a free every Tuesday support group for folks who are going through divorce, and they're welcome to join that.
mm,
And so that's also in the link. I believe you're going to provide the link for that. And
yes.
that's going to the website. You can also find out about that. Lots of videos and information on the website, and lots of testimonials from
Mm,
people. So, oh, and one further thing, a guarantee.
yes.
You take the 10-week program. If you don't feel like you've gotten your money's worth and you've grown the way we expect that you will based on our experience, we'll give you your money back.
Wow.
And
Beautiful.
we're no therapist does that. And so one quick thing, I do recommend individual therapy for sure if it's with a good therapist. And in my experience, a good therapist would be somebody who had actually gone through a divorce, him or herself. My experience makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But the difference between therapy is that you go through a weekly session, let's say, and you sit down and you just talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's not structured. And so if you do that every week for, let's say, 6 months, that's 24 weeks, 24 hours. And essentially that's what we offer in the 10 weeks. And so what we find is that people are able to much more effectively and quickly go through the process, where therapy is helpful, but not nearly as helpful in my experience personally.
Hmm.
And a lot of therapy doesn't deal with, and this is one of some does, but a lot of it does not deal with the core issue of not enoughness.
Mm,
And what I call that prison cell that we've created of not enoughness. And by the way,
right.
Edith Eger, who was a mentee of Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning,
Yeah.
she wrote the book The Choice, which is a really good book. Difficult because the first third of the book is her experience in the concentration camp, really.
Yeah.
But she also envisioned a prison cell, and she says the choice is
Wow.
that we have a key that we put in our pocket, will we take it out and will we unlock the door and set ourselves free? And
Oof.
so that's really what I'm interested in helping people do, and therapy can help, but therapy by itself oftentimes isn't nearly as effective in my experience.
Yeah, it's quite different. And this structured program offers so many different ways of looking at things and diving in specifically. And that
Right.
structured group activity is, really, really valuable.
Yeah,
Yeah, so thank you. So one more time, rebuilders.net.
that's correct.
All
That's
right.
correct.
Find more information about Nick Meima and his programs and the free assessment and videos. And just, I've been there myself. It's a wealth of resource. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Nick, for being here.
Great to spend time with you, Robyn.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. It's so great to be with you. I love this episode, and shout out to all the listeners. Like, download, subscribe, and we'll see you next Thursday, 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a beautiful day, everybody.